Come on, we're just about getting heated up here in the NBA. We don't know exactly who's going to be 1 through 8 in the Eastern and Western Conference, but we're going to find out shortly, and away we go into the playoffs. Punching their tickets here, the Los Angeles Lakers, punching their tickets, the Philadelphia 76ers, 2 spots still up for grabs. But in this segment here, Davis Maddock, we're going to talk about what might happen in the future with hot topics and how this pertains. Let's take a look right here. Players that will be under pressure. Let's focus on Jayson Tatum. We know he's one of the best athletes in the NBA, routinely top 5, top 10 in MVP. One of those players on a great basketball team that we expect sooner than later to win an NBA championship. If we take a look here at his playoff statistics, close to 24 points a game. You take a look at his playoff record, 52-42. Eastern Conference final appearances 4, championships 0. So this year, the Celtics look like they are the best team in the NBA. They should win the NBA championship. But my question and buy or sell for you today, Davis, is Jayson Tatum is the star under the most pressure this postseason. Buy or sell?
I think I'm buying it. I would actually maybe even include his teammate Jaylen Brown in this one, because if you're looking at the two guys, who is more likely to be, subject of the fans wanting to trade him, the fans wanting to move on, the front office maybe wanting to move on, it probably would be Jaylen Brown. But it's really, I would maybe sell it and just say it's the entire Boston Celtics organization. It is Joe Mazzulla. It is everyone in the front office. It's Tatum. It's Brown. It's Horford. It is Porzingis. It's Derek White. It's Drew Holiday, who just got this big contract extension. But I'm buying it in general because the Boston Celtics have just been here as an organization so many times in the last, I guess, 7 years since they've had these two guys. And the results are they lose in the Eastern Conference Finals. They lose in the finals. They lose in the first round the last year for Stevens. They lose in the Eastern Conference Finals. They lose in the semis. They lose in the finals. They lose in the finals. It's not a great playoff track record. And what does everyone always say about the Boston Celtics in the postseason? It's that the late game offense, Tatum, he's not LeBron, he's not Kevin Durant, he's not Steph Curry, he's not Luka Doncic. Tatum has gotten 90% of the way up the mountain. He's a great regular season player, but you look at MVP odds, he's always 6th in the MVP odds, and he never ends up getting the votes. He is probably the 6th best player in the NBA. Well, being the 6th best player in the NBA when you have these great teammates, it's awesome. But what ends up happening in the postseason is that how often would you say the team with the absolute best player ends up winning the series? It's crazy in the NBA how often it happens, which means when you play Nikola Jokic, when you play Giannis, when you play Kevin Durant, that guy is just able to get all the way to the top of the mountain. What does the pressure inevitably mean for Tatum? What are you going to do? You're going to trade Jayson Tatum? No, you're not going to trade Jayson Tatum. But if the Celtics lose in the finals or the Eastern Conference, if the Celtics lose in the Eastern Conference Finals to the 76ers, there is going to be anger in the streets of Boston. I can promise you that.
Yeah, players under pressure for sure. Luka, Nikola, Joel Embiid in Philadelphia, even they say, look, well, they're the 7th seed. He's going to get a lot of heat for not getting the Sixers over the hump, which quite frankly just means get yourself to an Eastern Conference final. So it's a great question all the way through, but the Celtics are built for a championship. And if Jayson Tatum does not play well and they get knocked out short of that championship, he's going to certainly get a lot of scorn from that. Let's take a look at this one or done. We're talking about OKC, the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. Record this season, 57-25. Points per game, 120, and giving up around 113 per game. So we're looking for big things here, obviously, for OKC. The question in buy or sell, the Thunder are more likely to lose in the first round than win the title. How about that, Davis?
No, this is not right. This is, I think a good bit. And look, from a Thunder perspective, they did luck out a little bit not playing the Los Angeles Lakers, who are way better than the average 7-8 seed. And the Lakers were really good against the Thunder in the regular season. Who did the Thunder struggle against? The Thunder struggle against really big teams. They struggle against teams that rebound very well. That is exactly what the Lakers are able to do. As it stands right now, they're either going to play the Pelicans or the Kings. They're going to be playing a not full-strength Pelicans team and actually not a full-strength Kings team either. But I feel sort of like the narrative about the Thunder has gotten it's gone a little bit too negative for a team that is literally the 1 seed in the Western Conference. Like there's sort of this thought out there, oh, they can't beat a team that plays too big. I mean, how many centers do you think they played when they won 57 games? You think those teams did not have centers? They don't possibly know how to combat teams that play that big? Like Mark Daigneault just won Coach of the Year. I mean, why do you think he won Coach of the Year? Because he figured out how to play good, strong basketball with the team without a traditional ground-bound, big hulking center. His available centers are, I mean, Chet is like maybe the skinniest player in the NBA. The Thunder are extremely good, and no one believes in them because they're the second youngest team in the NBA by cumulative age, I believe. Gordon Hayward made them a little bit older with that move at the trade deadline, and you could probably speak more to this than I could because I'm too close to it. But it also feels like people don't treat Shai Gilgeous-Alexander like he is at the same level of a Tatum or a Doncic or a Giannis or whatever, and I mean, it's just not true, man. He is really that good.
I got a lot of feels from last year, like the Denver Nuggets, right? Oh, top seed, yeah, but they haven't proved it really. And they're top seed just by show here. Yeah, they played well in the regular season, handled their business, won an NBA championship. I'm not saying OKC can do that because I do think the Celtics overall are better. But the fact of the matter is they have a great matchup in round number 1. They're going to be rested for this. And it's a really good basketball team. We weren't even expecting OKC to overtake the Denver Nuggets over the final 3 weeks of the season, even to get that top overall seed. So big things on the horizon for OKC. They just have to go out on the court and prove it. Talking about going out on the court and proving it and staying healthy, that's the Suns here and their ceiling. Let's take a look at their odds here in the postseason. To win round number 1, minus 140 to the conference championship, which means taking down the Western Conference, plus 850 and an NBA title at 20-1. So the buy or sell here for us, Davis, is the Suns have the highest ceiling in the NBA right now. Buy or sell that.
Yeah, I'm totally selling that. I get at what we are. I get at what we are aiming at here. Which is that Kevin Durant at times has been the best player in the NBA. Devin Booker at times has seemed like the best scoring guard in the NBA. I think a little bit of what's going on is Bradley Beal is like a really good NBA player, but not one of the 20 best players in the NBA probably. But I mean, a lot of the guys who are in their rotation, Eric Gordon, Grayson Allen, Yusuf Nurkic, Drew Eubanks, Josh Okogie, they're like, Grayson Allen actually led the NBA in 3-point percentage, but it never came together this season for the Suns. They never were all healthy enough at the same time. They just never coalesced. But the highest ceiling team in the NBA, I mean, how about the Boston Celtics, who were number 1 in the NBA in offensive rating, number 3 in the NBA in defensive rating. They had an 11.6 net rating, which means for every 100 possessions, they outscored their opponents by 11.6 points on average. Number 2 in the entire NBA, almost 50% worse, the Oklahoma City Thunder at plus 7.4. I mean, I think the Celtics have just as much a chance of flaming out in the postseason as they have, every year for the last 5 years. But there's no question in my mind, none, that the Celtics still have the Celtics are good enough that if they went 16-0 in the postseason or like 16-2 or something crazy, or went 12-0 in the Eastern Conference, I'm not even blinking. I'm just like, yeah, they are that good. Like, it's not surprising.
The Phoenix Suns here. Just when I thought I was out, they bring me back in. We'll see if they could do some damage here in the NBA playoffs. The big three are healthy. The sky could be the limit. Best in the league. Let's talk some duos and some tandems right now. Luka Doncic on the season, 34 points per game, close to 10 assists a game, and almost a walking triple-double. That's outrageous here. Kyrie Irving playing Batman here. It's a Robin and Batman. Take a look at this. 26 points per game, 5 assists per game, 5 rebounds per game. Buy or sell question. Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving are the NBA's best duo.
I mean, they might be the highest ceiling duo. You know what? The best duo in the NBA is Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic because it includes Nikola Jokic, right? He really is that good that I think it makes that probably the best and most effective duo in the NBA. But Luka and Kyrie are pretty darn close. Luka is actually kind of in it's not the same as Zion, but it's like we've yet to have the Luka moment because Luka's been, he's really mostly played on bad Dallas Mavericks teams, like Mavericks teams with his teammates injured. Until Kyrie, I mean, I guess Mavericks, Kristaps Porzingis was the best player he'd ever played in. But go back and look at Kristaps' numbers as a Maverick. He was just bad. Like he was not a plus NBA player when he was on the Dallas Mavericks. And they're definitely in the top 5 of NBA duos. You know, it's like, okay, we've got the double J's there in Boston. We got Durant and Booker, to the aforementioned Suns question. They're definitely top 5, but I don't think they're the best. I'm giving it to Jokic and Murray.
How about that? There you go. Dynamic duos here. They got to play well for the Mavericks to move forward, but quite frankly, they've been playing really well here. Let's take a look at from close to concern right now. That's Kawhi Leonard. How about this? His playoff games per season. 2019, give me that championship, 24 games played. 2020, 13 games. 2021, 11. 2022, 0. And 2023, 2. So the buy or sell question here is Kawhi Leonard's body. Can it hold up for the entire postseason here, Davis?
You know, this is a pretty sad one, and it would be a lot more sad if Kawhi had not won that championship with the Toronto Raptors. Which, going back, is actually, I mean, it's kind of crazy to think about it. Which is that he won that championship with Toronto and then just peaced out. He was like, "Thank you, Toronto, for the memories. I really enjoyed my 8 months being a member of the Raptors organization, but actually, I'm out." I'm selling it. I'm selling the idea that Kawhi Leonard can stay healthy for an entire postseason. He's already coming in with an injury. Now, he was spotted at the team shoot around yesterday, so it seems like he's going to be good to go for the beginning of this Mavericks-Clippers series. But I have seen so many chances for this Clippers team to figure their stuff out. They have not been able to figure it out really at any point. I'm selling it. You know, I think it'll be, maybe they do end up beating the Mavericks. Maybe it's game 5, it's tied 2-2, and then we see Kawhi go to the locker room in the second quarter, and then we never see him again. You know, he was just like, oh, where'd Kawhi? No one knows. No one knows where Kawhi is. Kawhi is not here. It's all on Paul George and James Harden. I mean, what a terrifying sentence. Your team's postseason success relies on James Harden deciding to show up to work and do his job the same way he did in the regular season.
Yeah, we should do in-play sports tonight, both myself and Kevin. And when the Clippers would come up, it was always interesting because that one playoff run that the Clippers had, it was Kawhi Leonard was questionable on a night-to-night basis. But little did we know he had a torn ACL that nobody would release, and nobody could get any pictures from practice if he even had shorts on. And we used to get a kick out of it because they would play away games in the playoffs and he'd be listed as questionable, but they didn't even get on the team plane to go there. We'll see if they're being coy about that injury to Kawhi Leonard. But anytime your knee starts flaring up, you know it's going to flare up again. Missing so many games down the stretch and in question here for round number 1. I don't think Kawhi Leonard's body certainly is going to hold up either. And by the way, to your point earlier on the Toronto Raptors, have we ever seen that before? A guy that takes over a city, wins them a championship, is being loved, like, come back, whatever you want, whatever the price tag is, we'll pay you. And he's like, yeah, I'll show up to the parade, and I'm going out with my Uncle Dennis to Los Angeles. Wild times all the way around. Let's talk about fading the public up next right here on the Early Line.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It's when he swung it easy at three-quarter golf swings, and he pretty much hit his number all the time. Dude, but when he hit something full, he hit it 20 yards over the greens at times. He's like, what are you doing? He's just smiley, happy, and a freakish athlete golf robot that's going to be right there winning majors for the next 10-plus years. It's amazing.
Did you say he was smiling or smiley?
Only on SportsGrid.
They're still the best. They're still the champs. Everyone wants to crown the Celtics the champions, but that's not the way it works. They got to beat them. And, they got to get through the East, which isn't going to be fun to begin with. Everyone thinks it's so automatic.
If it's just Boris is kind of losing his power, if whatever his tactics have been, yeah, move on.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We talked about the Ohtani story. This interpreter, Ipe, clearly was a problem gambler. I mean, he would be identified as that and beyond. Now, there are a lot of others that are out there.
The timing didn't seem great. It seemed slightly tone deaf in terms of, maybe now isn't the time to say it. But the sentiment itself, you have to agree with. There's only so much a sports betting company can do, right?
Newswire, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Quick little segment here to end hour number 2. Before we hit hour number 3, big topics, big guests all the way around the NHL final day of the regular season. Joe Madden will come on. Craig Mish coming on to talk some Major League Baseball and the hottest topics. But before we get there, we love this segment here because we like to reach out to the people in a Fade the Public poll to let them know where we're actually coming from, but also get their feedback. The question today at SportsGrid, at SportsGrid TV on X, which sport has the best postseason? And look at this, at Rightside VP, at Davis Maddock, monster votes across the board. The topics where could be included Major League Baseball, the NBA, the NFL, and the NHL were the 4 topics here. Before I get to exactly the way I voted, the public saying, whoa, 45% coming in with the NFL, which is no surprise here, followed by the NHL at 38%, which I absolutely agree with. But look at the NBA. We're about on the verge of having an unbelievable NBA run, Davis. 6% in dead last place. How about that?
I mean, I don't agree with it. I am locked into the NBA playoffs. I enjoy it, but it like the thing that people like about postseason sports is the drama and the unpredictability. Yeah. And the NBA playoffs don't really get unpredictable until the conference finals, and even then, sometimes the conference finals are a total walkover. People love the single elimination. Also, the people voting for the NHL, they clearly do not watch very much NHL playoffs. What they mean is they mean a game 7 in the NHL playoffs where it's just like completely insane. No one can breathe. People are falling over. It's absolutely nuts. I promise you, no one is watching Game 3 of Penguins Islanders. Like that's got like less than 1 million people are watching the Game 3 of the Eastern Conference, NHL playoffs. I promise you.
I got to tell you, though, like the NHL 37.8%, there's probably a good chance that if the Flyers had made the playoffs, they would be overtaking the NFL for most exciting and best postseason here. Just a thought process that I have. But we'll get to this topics and much, much more in hour number 3. Come on, man. 2 hours down. 1 more hour to go. There's no better place to be than right here on the Sports Grid Network talking with Davis and Donnie in the morning right here on the early line.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It's official. Hour number 3 is underway on this glorious Thursday morning. It's Davis and Donnie right here on the Early Line, Sirius XM Channel 159, Sports Grid Network, reaching out to the public because we love to hear back from them. Our Sports Grid poll here to fade the public with question asked, which sport has the best postseason? And in the voting right now, the NFL has the lead, close to 45% of the votes through almost 300 votes this morning. Second place is the NHL with 38%. Third place is Major League Baseball at 11.3%. And the NBA pulling up the rear at only 6% here. My vote did go to the NFL. I love the NFL. I love the NFL playoffs. There's so much excitement. But I have to agree here, Davis, with the NHL coming in second place because from a fantastic standpoint, you're right, Game 7s are tremendous in any sports, but NHL seems to be elevated, particularly if you get to overtime in a Game 7. It's fantastic in the NHL. But the fact that all the seeds, to me, have a legitimate chance of winning a cup differentiates from the NFL, from the NBA, and to a certain degree MLB, which we do get upsets there. But I love the NHL playoffs, but I can't partake in it, Davis. The Flyers don't ever make the playoffs, so I had to downgrade my NHL opinion based on my fandom here and go with the NFL.
See, I'm the opposite of you. I don't watch the NHL regular season hardly at all, but I'm a very loose Colorado Avalanche fan in the sense that I had a lot of memories
Midwest.
of the Avalanche growing up. Yeah. Look, of course, Colorado, famously one of the most Midwestern states. I mean, come on, we all know that. And when they won the first cup in 2001, Forsberg and Zach, welcome to everyone on radio here on Sports Grid. Davis Maddock and Donnie Rightside with you talking which league has the best playoffs. NFL obviously wins the poll. My vote would be NFL first, NBA second, NHL third, baseball fourth. Not that I don't like the baseball playoffs. I've been to a playoff game for all of these sports except for the Colorado Avalanche. I've not made that drive. I was actually there for pretty much the entirety of the 2014 World Series run that ended in a loss for the Kansas City Royals. Donnie, I was there. Fun fact, trivia fact. I was there for the Madison Bumgarner game when he came in, 3 days rest, pitched 6 innings, the Alex Gordon triple where he probably should have got sent home. I was locked in for that. Very similar to you, though. Major League Baseball playoffs, not a huge draw to me. The Royals have not made the postseason since 2015. They've not won a series since 2015. So am I locked in? Because I think you will relate to this. If my team's not in it, I'm not that locked in. I don't care. I do not care that much because there's always something else to gamble on. There's always something else going on. So I don't need to be locked in. But if one of my teams are in, I'm there. I'm front row center.
It's a good point you bring up there. And also, it's funny, too, because I've been to NHL playoff games. I've been to a lot of NFL playoff games. I've been to NBA playoff games. I've actually never been to a Philadelphia Phillies playoff game here because usually in my childhood, they would make the playoffs once every 25 years. But now as I get older, Phillies are a little bit better, much more games to sort of watch. But you're right about that theory because if you vote on, and usually it pertains here to the NHL. Let's just say I am a Flyers fan. If the Flyers were good, I'm much more invested overall in the league, which includes watching the NHL playoffs. But when the Flyers are not in it, it's like, hey, who won that game? Let me catch up. Is there a Game 7? Is something going on X or Twitter that you say, hey, you got to get to this game and watch it? Sure, we're all going to partake here. But the NFL has always been king. Like whether or not growing up for myself or now, the Philadelphia Eagles are good and we're in the playoffs or get knocked out, we're always watching that. It's like, you know what? The Eagles lost in the wild card round. Who cares about the divisional rounds, the championship rounds, and the Super Bowl? We're always invested here. But my question to you, Davis, on this poll coming up, because I do think it's interesting. The NBA is popular and technically way more popular than the NHL and or MLB if you're just taking a look from, let's just say, a ratings perspective. Why do you think the voters in this poll, and it wasn't even close, it wasn't like, hey, 40% here, 30% here, 20, like 6% voted for the NBA. Why would that be?
Well, the NBA is better at marketing itself than Major League Baseball and the NHL is. What you'll learn in sports business, Rick Harrow should have talked to us about this, is that Major League Baseball is super popular locally. It does very well locally. They get a lot of gate receipts. It does very well on television locally. Like the Cardinals, for example. If you went to a Cardinals game, you would have no idea that they were this terrible team that no one, outside of St. Louis cares about. It's just super big locally. But someone who lives in Alabama simply probably just never thinks about baseball. Like literally 365 days might pass and they might not think about the sport of baseball one single time. The NBA is a much more global sport. The NBA markets itself very well overseas. It doesn't do as well in the United States probably as they would like, but they make a ton of TV money. I mean, they make a ton of national TV money, and they make a ton of international TV money in a way that Major League Baseball and the NHL doesn't do, which is, I mean, it's pretty smart by the NBA, right? To realize, I don't know, what was 10 years ago or something, like the way for us to really get a hold as a legitimate sports operation is to, instead of trying to convince people in the United States who are never going to like never going to like basketball for, complex sociological reasons, let's try and get China really into basketball. Let's try and get Australia really into basketball, which is true. I mean, American basketball is one of the highest rated things on television in China, which is nuts, but it's true.
Yeah, I remember the whole thing with Daryl Morey making a comment about China here and LeBron James, the NBA, being in uproar. Like, dude, you know how much money we make in China at this point? So the global impact of the NBA certainly is massive. The ratings will be there, but it's just interesting to see this poll now dropping from 6% even down to 5.9% here in the NBA. Now, 2 minutes left in the segment before we flip it over to Major League Baseball. Anything going around in the soccer world, Davis, that we should be paying attention to today and keep the people up to date on?
I mean, we had basically the greatest quarterfinal matches of all time in the Champions League this last week. So on Tuesday, Dortmund in an absolute thriller beats Atletico Madrid 4-2. PSG beats Barcelona 4-1. Barcelona gets a red card. So we have, historically great clubs in European football, and Atletico Madrid and Barcelona falling by the wayside. Dortmund, it would sort of be, actually, it's kind of like the Moneyball story, kind of like the Oakland Athletics gate crashing, the Major League Baseball postseason. It would be the comparable there. And then we had the nouveau riche, I suppose, the Dodgers of the of European club football. And Manchester City, they lose yesterday a two-legged tie to Real Madrid, who are like the Yankees of European club football, historically the greatest organization over the last 100 years. It was, look, man, I know you don't do the white ball on the green grass, but it was truly something to behold. It was an awesome 2 days of sport.
Something to behold. Watch out for the Champions League here. Who's going to win it? I have no idea who's actually in it, but I do appreciate the updates here by Davis Maddock letting us know that here. How about this? We're going to have a pitching debut today that could be sensational. It's Jack Leiter on the mound today. And who better to talk about that coming up than Craig Mish? A lot of Major League Baseball today? Not really. Only 5 games on the card. There's no NBA tonight, but the action is hot right here on the SportsGrid Network, and we'll continue that action right after these words.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It's when he swung it easy at three-quarter golf swings, and he pretty much hit his number all the time. Dude, but when he hit something full, he hit it 20 yards over the greens at times. He's like, what are you doing?
He's just smiley, happy, and a freakish athlete golf robot that's going to be right there winning majors for the next 10-plus years. It's amazing.
Did you say he was smiling or smiley?
Only on SportsGrid.
They're still the best. They're still the champs. Everyone wants to crown the Celtics the champions, but that's not the way it works. They got to beat them. And, they got to get through the East, which isn't going to be fun to begin with. Everyone thinks it's so automatic.
If it's just Boris is kind of losing his power, if whatever his tactics have been, yeah, move on.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
We talked about the Ohtani story. This interpreter Ipe, clearly was a problem gambler. I mean, he would be identified as that and beyond. Now, there are a lot of others that are out there.
The timing didn't seem great. It seemed slightly tone deaf in terms of, maybe now isn't the time to say it, but the sentiment itself, you have to agree with. There's only so much a sports betting company can do, right?
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Right back at it, hour number 3 in full effect. We flip it over and talk some action on the diamond. Yesterday was action-packed all the way through. 5 games on